Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today and welcome to this educational presentation of how to kick your trading into overdrive. Now in today's educational webinar, I'm going to share with you a simple technique that can really take your trading to the next level. And regardless of what market or what time frame you trade, it really doesn't matter. In fact, I'm going to share with you examples in just about any market and time frame you can think of. For example, let's look at this chart right here. This is a 30-minute chart of the E-mini futures, and this is going back to just last week, last Thursday and Friday. Now, someone looking at this would say, well, that's pretty much a nice uptrend you've been having for the last day or so. But as we see here, we probably met resistance. This is where most of the institutions and a lot of the big money is selling. So I think we're going to come all the way back down. So you probably look for selling opportunities here. But with this technique I'm going to be sharing with you today, you actually would have generated buy signals all along the way up. And regardless if there was so-called resistance or support, regardless of what that is, because we don't focus on that, you still would have been a buyer because ultimately the E-mini rose 44 points altogether in those 2 days since we were generating buy signals with this technique. That's a total of $2,200 potential dollars you could have captured per contract. So you're going to see how valid this simple technique is that I'm going to be sharing with you today and how it can really teach you how to kick your trading into overdrive. So welcome once again. My name is Steven Primo, President and Founder of Specialist Trading. I've teamed up with proprietary strategies with one goal in mind, and that is simply to educate you. We are first and foremost an educational company, and that's our only goal. Now, a lot of traders always say, well, why are you so focused on educating? Why don't you just teach your own trading method or teach traders what to do on a daily basis and tell them where to buy or where to sell? Well, in my opinion, in my 4 decades of trading, I couldn't think of a better way in which to steer you in the wrong direction, a better way in which to really give you a recipe for a disaster. If you think of it, the entire industry is based on doing that. You have to go to a chat room or a trading room or subscribe to some signal service or buy some tens of thousands of dollar system that generates buys and sell signals for it. Now, if trading were that simple, well, then it would be, upwards of 80 to 90% of all traders would be actually winning or making really good amounts of money. But it's been estimated that 80 to 85% of all traders are failing. So obviously that type of methodology doesn't work. What I found that works in my 4 decades plus of trading is sound fundamental education that puts you in the decision-making process. See, no two traders should ever trade alike. You should be a part of the process where you can decide for yourself how you want to be actually entering, exiting, or placing your stop. So that's what we do. We supply you with all these different things so that you can decide for yourself exactly how and where and what time frame you want to be trading. So that's what we do at Specialist Trading and Pro Trader Strategies, and you'll see how much attention we give to that in today's educational presentation. But before we begin, as always, we're required by law to share this with you, so please take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results using this simple technique to kick your trading into overdrive, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future, and also please remember that all examples are strictly for educational purposes only. So once again, as you're taking a brief moment to view our disclaimer, I'd also like to really invite most of you, if you haven't done so already. I see a lot of familiar faces here, but I'm sure there are some of you that haven't begun to follow us on Twitter. There's a lot of really great free information I post that on a daily basis that you would really like to take advantage of. Anywhere from signals our strategies have generated, just to give you an idea of how we do things, to little bits of financial wisdom. So lots of great free educational information. Feel free to follow us on Twitter. Now, once again, we are different from other webinars or other presenters you may have seen in the past in the fact that our only goal is simply to teach you. As you can see here, my goal is not to force feed you signals. I don't want to tell you what the perfect time frame is. I don't want to tell you where to buy, where to sell. I provide you with all those different things, multiple different variables on where to enter, exit, or place a stop. But ultimately, it's going to be your decision. Remember, no two traders should ever trade alike. That is a recipe for disaster. You have to become a part of the process and find your own way. Now, the reason I say this, which is so valuable, is because this is the way I was taught some 42 years ago and what I believe has sustained me going on 42 years now. So if it's worked for me, I really think it can work for you. Now, let me start out by sharing with you one of the first things my mentors taught me. Obviously, this is Trading 101, and most traders know this already, but do you really really incorporated into your trading because they really emphasized how important it is to trade with the trend. There are two types of trends. There is the overall trend, which we've talked about numerous times, and that's with our buy-sell line. We've said that in many other presentations. But there's also the short-term trend. That's the trend within the overall trend. And this is where so many students have a difficulty with because they've gone, they spent their thousands and thousands of dollars on systems or different approaches, which really don't help them with the short-term trend. So we ask ourselves, how does one find the short-term trend? Well, there are numerous ways, but most of them are faulty. For example, if someone looked at this example right here, they'd say, well, okay, at about this point, I decided that we're in a downtrend because we're making lower lows and lower highs. As you can see here, the highs here are lower, the highs are lower. So I'm convinced by now that we're in a downtrend, and I've got about a nice 5 or 6 bars of profit in place. And then this happens. And if you don't have an adequate stop in place, most likely the way most traders would say, well, I'll hope and pray that it comes back down, and pretty soon you've turned a small loss into a major loss, and now you're just hoping and praying to break even. Okay? Does that look familiar to anyone? Because the short-term trend can change on a dime, and most of the time, most traders don't know how to identify it, and then they don't know how to trade with it. Well, in order to trade in sync with the current trend, you need a tool that translates what the market wants to do. You see, we're so busy on looking for some indicator or some method or pattern that's supposed to tell us what the short-term trend is. But if you want to be in sync with the short-term trend, the best thing is to listen to the trend. In other words, you need something that translates what the actual market is telling you. The difficulty is we've never been taught how to do this. We're always taught to listen to some guru or listen to some earnings report or some fundamental news or go to that chat room and find out what everyone else thinks. But why don't we just listen to the source? That's the market. So most traders would say, okay, well, I'll listen to the market, but how do I do that? Well, here's the translator that translates what the market wants to do. It's a tool I was introduced to some 42 years ago on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange when I was struggling, and this is called the PET-D. You've heard about me speak about it before. It's probably our most powerful tool we have at Specialist Trading and Pro Trader Strategies because it can be used in so many powerful and simple ways. All right, so if you're not familiar with the PET-D, if you haven't come to my presentations before, what exactly is the PET-D? Well, it's a proprietary algorithm. We've kept the formula in-house. That's okay because the real secret to the PET-D is not the formula, not being able to generate it on your own. The real secret is in knowing how to apply it. So we made it simple. We took out of the hard work out of it for you because it basically would be something you'd have to calculate on each and every bar. We don't want you to do that because we know no one would use it. So we've taken the hard work out of it for you and developed it into a color bar tool. Pro Trader Strategies and myself, with the help of a lot of very prominent platform and programmers and high-speed platform programmers, have developed a color bar tool so that all you have to do is see the consistency in the colors to determine what the short-term trend is. Now, there are many uses with the PET-D in this color bar tool. You can use it as a signal confirmation tool, okay? So any strategy, any method you have, doesn't have to be one of mine, you can confirm it with the PET-D to know that you're in sync with the short-term trend. And I've talked about it before in numerous webinars in the past. But you can also use it, and this is what we're going to define it today, as an early trend detector. And that's the beauty of it because as an early trend detector, it can generate its own setups. As you notice here, I didn't say it can generate its own strategies. A strategy comes complete with entry, exit, stop placement rules. We're not talking about that today. We're just simply talking about a technique that spotlights a high probability entry. Okay? So for example, let's look at that old chart again. Most traders would have said, okay, we are definitely in a downtrend. So let's say you would have shorted maybe here, and at this point you're thinking, well, it's just a pullback, it's going to go lower, and then at this point you're saying, well, maybe I'll just short some more, and then at this point you're hiding your statements from your significant other because you're in it for the long haul now, okay? How could the PET-D have helped us? Well, it's as simple as clicking on the PET-D on our platform, and as you can see here, all of a sudden the bars turn either red or green. Now, rather than defining the short-term trend down here, we knew well in advance, way up here, that we were in a short-term downtrend because the bars were red. All right, even on the up days, the outline was red. And we knew even way before at this point you decided to throw in the towel, down here that the trend had changed. Even on the down days, you see a down day here and a down day here and a down day here, they're still colored and outlined green, telling you that the overall trend is still up. So as you can see, the beauty of the PET-D is that it tells you which direction you should be trading. And once you know that direction, you can virtually apply any technique that is in sync with that direction. You see how we've really simplified trading for you. That's half the battle of being in sync with not only the overall trend, but the short-term trend. Okay, now, here's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. A trading technique using the PET-D, because the PET-D has literally dozens of uses and applications. One of them is a signal confirmation and identifier. Another one is a stop placement tool. There are just really dozens and dozens of uses for it. In today's presentation, I'm going to share with you a very simple two-bar technique, okay? Now, don't worry about copying this. I know a lot of you will say, well, gosh, okay, I got to get all this down then, because this presentation is being recorded. So if you feel as if you didn't get all the information, I know a lot of you want to ask questions for every slide, but don't worry, we'll take questions at the end. The buy setups and the sell setups are being recorded. This entire presentation is being recorded. So if you happen to miss it or don't write it down, don't worry. You will get a link. Each and every one of you will get a link to this recording explaining everything so you can see it over again at your leisure, okay? All right, so here are the buy setups. Extremely simple. And remember, all of our techniques, all of our methods, and all of our strategies that come with complete entry, exit, stop placement rules are extremely simple. My mentors taught me that most traders who have difficulty or having a difficult time are actually overcomplicating their setups and their strategies. It's the traders who have simplified, who have taken all the noise out, all the tons of indicators, all the fundamental news, all the setups that are supposed to be based off of some institution or some volume or some Fibonacci support. When you take all that stuff out and really just listen to the chart in front of you, that's when you simplify and become consistent. So you'll see how consistent and how simple this is in this presentation. Okay, so let's begin. Let's look at the buy setup. If you're going long with the PET-D, you want to see a green bar that closes below the previous green bar's low. That's it, okay? But it has to be green. For example, someone looking at this would say, well, Steve, this is a simple two-bar reversal. I mean, I was always taught based on that pattern recognition class that you're supposed to go short, right? In other words, the market went up and then it quickly went down. So this is actually a negative example. Well, is it really? Because remember, we want to see bar number 2, the second bar's close below the low of bar number 1. So if we see the close right here, it meets that requirement. And now we want to see that this bar is colored green. As you can see, this is a valid buy setup. So why would you think to short this? Because you're going against the short-term trend. In other words, if the trend were down, if this were a valid setup to go short using a two-bar reversal, that would require at least one of those bars to be red. Most likely both of them to be red, because that would tell you that you're in sync with the short-term trend. But if you're selling here, what are you doing? You're going out of sync with the short-term trend. Those bars are green. You don't want to swim against the tide. You want to go in sync with it. And this is giving you a high probability point of entry, okay? Now you can enter anywhere you'd like on the close. You can place a limit somewhere down lower. You can place a limit above this bar. Remember, this is not a strategy with full-fledged rules. All a technique does is spotlight or highlight a high probability buy setup. And that's all we're sharing with you today, okay? Now, for sell setups, we're going to do the opposite. In order to generate a sell setup, you need a red bar that closes above the previous red bar's high. Now, you notice we're not saying with the buys and with the sells, we're not saying below or above the previous bar's close. We're actually saying it has to close higher than the previous bar's high. For example, someone looking at this would say, well, Steve, this is a bullish engulfing pattern. I mean, you've even talked about this in the past. These are bullish patterns. This is where you want to go long, right? Well, we've always said any technique that you use, any candlestick pattern you use is still valid, but only as long as it is in sync with the trend. Because sure, this is a bullish engulfing pattern and the close is higher than the previous bar's high. But once we add the pet D, we see that both bars are colored or outlined red. Now the reason this is outlined red is because it was an up day. That's why we have the open body. But if it was an up day and it was in sync, then this would have been outlined green. But since it's an up day and the short-term trend is still down, in other words, you can still have a short-term trend being down and have an up day. You don't have, not every day is down in a short-term downtrend. So this is a really high probability setup to go short because you have a nice bounce enabling you, if you want, to sell at higher prices. You can place a limit maybe higher. Sometimes there's a little overflow to the upside, as you'll see in a few minutes. Or you can put your entry in at half point or even completely below. Remember, it's up to you. No two traders should ever trade alike. You are in charge. And whichever entry, stop placement, or exit makes you feel comfortable is the one you should be trading. Now, I know a lot of students say, well, Steve, I haven't been trading long enough, or the ones I've been using are terrible. Well, this is what we do in our courses. We provide you with upwards of 6 or 7 different entries, exits, and stop placements. And we work with you to help you decide which ones to use that make you feel comfortable. All right? Okay, so let's look at some recent technique examples using the setup rules I just shared with you. But please remember, you notice that this does not say recent strategy examples, the way I've shown in the past in other webinars. The difference between a strategy and a technique is that a technique just highlights or spotlights a high probability setup for either going long or short. It does not in any way give you a valid entry point, a valid exit, or a valid stop placement. This is up to you to decide once you're trading a technique. Okay. Now, also I want to share with you that all these examples, everything you're seeing here is being displayed on our platform. This is the PTS Primo Charting platform. I designed this with pro trader strategies to make trading simple. I mean, it does not get any simpler than this, and you'll see how easy it is on our platform. This is the educational platform that actually teaches you how to trade. Okay, so let's look at this example in TSS. This was just a couple of weeks ago. Now, someone looking at this would say, okay, we've gone up, but look at this major resistance. We can't get through these levels. This is a bearish engulfing pattern, very negative sign here. This is where all the institutions are selling. So, Steve, I've got to go short here, right? I mean, this is the way I was always taught to trade, right? Well, trust me, I was taught to trade that same way 42 years ago, and I couldn't make a dime trading that way. There was no consistency in that. It wasn't until my mentors taught me to actually listen to the market instead of the so-called institutions, instead of the so-called indicators, instead of the so-called fundamental news, and just listen to the market because it's usually telling me in advance what it wants to do. All right, so first thing we want to do is see if we can find that pattern, and guess what? We have a close that is below the previous day's low. All right, so that's a part of the requirements. Now we just have to add the PET D. And on our platform, you just simply click on the PET D tab, which is right here, and the bars automatically change color. And guess what? That's the setup we talked about. You can either buy it right on that close, place your limit a little lower, buy halfway point up if it starts to go up, or maybe up above here. But either way, it would have been a good suggestion because that's a buy setup according to the rules, and TSS went up 10 points in the next 4 days, okay? Not a bad little setup there, not a bad little trade. Let's look at letter A. All right, once again, someone looking at this will say, well, Steve, we've come down pretty well. We're in a downtrend, but this is major support here, okay? Well, what do we have? We have 2 bars closing above the previous bar's high. Now we simply add the PET D, and we see that we don't care if this is major support. The market is telling us through its translator, the PET D, that the short-term trend is down. I don't really care about support. If the trend is down, most likely we're going to break through that support, all right? So it does, you know, support, I haven't looked at support in, I'd say, 42 years. I stopped looking at this. I only look at what the market wants to do. And at this point, the market's telling me it wants to go lower. So we could have shorted here and here based off the pattern I'm teaching you. And guess what? What happened to that support? Well, we gapped right down through it the next day. Now, someone would say, well, how did you know it was going to gap down? Did you look at the fundamental report that came out, or were you interested in that? No, we don't follow that. It's not required. If you wanted to, you could, but that's not in any of the requirements. All you do is learn how to listen to the market. The market told you a full 3 days in advance it wanted to go lower based off this technique. All right, let's look at PSA. All right, a little bit more expensive stock, but you could have applied calls or puts to this, regardless of what you trade or how you trade. Remember, you're in the power's in your hands. You're in charge of how you want to trade this. You don't have to buy the stock. You can buy calls or some type of spread strategy with an upward bias. But as we look at this, we see, well, we had the PET D. Okay, all the bars are being green. So what's the market telling us? Not me. Not some guy on TV, but what's the market and PSA telling us? It's telling us it wants to go higher. Until it has consecutive red bars, the trend is up. Now we see right here we had a green bar that closed below the low of the previous green bar. So that was a buy signal, and you had a very nice trade there. So should we take this bearish engulfing pattern and say, well, now we should get out and go short? No, because the bars are still green. So you not only have a buy setup here, you have another one here. So both these bars are giving you 2 more buy signals. And had you taken the very first setup and stayed in, you could have generated potentially 27 points to the upside coming into the first week in June, just based off this simple, easy to follow pattern. How about Apple? Okay, this was Apple in May, okay, mid-May. We see here that it's come down very strongly, but now it seems to have supported itself, and we have a bullish engulfing pattern. We have a couple of bars that close in the top portion of their range. Someone at this point would say, well, Steve, you always talk about bars that close in the top portion of their range. That's supposed to be a clue that they want to go higher. Sure, that is a valid clue in an uptrend. But remember, even though you may think that this support from the institutions or from some Elliott wave support, what is the market telling you? Forget about those outside sources. What is the market telling you? Well, if we add the PET D, the market's telling us that the trend is lower. So we don't care about support. We don't care about bounces. We're only going to be thinking in terms of a seller's bias if the market's telling us it wants to go lower. We don't want to swim upstream. So we have one bar here that is outlined red, and it closed above the previous bar's high. So what does that tell you? It's telling us that that's an actual sell setup according to this technique. Remember, you can enter anywhere you'd like. You can buy not calls. You can buy puts. You can purchase a spread. You can actually short the stock. It's entirely up to you. But Apple fell 20 points coming into the first week in June. Okay? And if you missed that, don't worry. There was another setup right here just days later that you could have shorted and got into, because this high outlined in red closed above the previous bar's high. All right, let's look at Beyond, BYND. A lot of talk about this stock as of late. A lot of people say, wow, this stock has taken off. How come I didn't take advantage of it? How come the smart money always makes money off this stuff? Well, that is the one role that I always tell traders, you have to leave that at the door if you become a student of mine. You will not be a victim if you're a student of mine. Why? Because you have all the knowledge in front of you. We teach you all these things, and it's your responsibility to take advantage of it. If you fail or if it doesn't work out right, it's because you made the decision to buy or sell here. We're giving you all this high probability information, but how you decide to apply it is up to you. So if you do have a loss, well, you have ways to protect yourself. But remember, no one is blaming anyone else, because at Specialist Trading and Pro Trader Strategies, you're in charge of your trading decisions. But the good news is that if you become a consistent trader, you're in charge of all your profitable trades as well. So there's no one to thank and say, wow, I got to follow this guru because I guess he knows what he's talking about. No, you are in charge, and so you can take all of the applause for all the well-earned decisions you were making. Now, if you look at this, I would say, well, okay, we're kind of in a range bracket here, so I'm not going to do anything. This is a sideways market. It's a range for the last 6 or so days. 5 or so days. I don't really want to trade that because it could break down and there's really no direction here. That's not true. Remember, we don't look at support and resistance. We only look at what the market's telling us. And once we apply the PET D, it's telling us that, sure, it may be in a range, but it's setting up to go higher because all of the bars have been green. So we don't care if it's in a range or going sideways. This is a buying opportunity. In fact, we have not only one, but 2 buying opportunities in this sideways market, because both these green bars closed below the low of the previous bar. So these are really high probability setups, and the stock went up 50 points in 4 days. So why would you be a victim and say, oh gosh, I never get involved in these other ones? That's not true. You always have a lot of opportunities. Here's a look at Google, okay? Someone looking at this would say, well, Steve, not enough information, only 5 bars. I can't really make a decision based off that. In fact, yes, you can. If you apply the PET D, you see here that we have this bar right here, the 4th bar closes above the previous bar's high, and both bars are red. So even though we have an up day and another up day, they're both outlined red. So that's telling you that you have 2 up days in a downtrend. So these are selling opportunities. They're not opportunities to go long. And had you taken this technique that we share with you today, that's 123 points coming into the first week in June that you potentially could have captured. Okay? So there's tons of these opportunities happening over and over again. Here's another one, an ROKU. Okay, someone looking at this will say, well, Steve, the big moves already happened. I can't get involved in this. I can't buy higher. Sure, I know it's difficult. It was one of my difficulties in overcoming when I first started trading. But if you add the PET D, it gives you the confidence of knowing that you're in sync with the short-term trend. And what do we have here? We have a green bar that closed down, and it closed lower than the previous bar's low. So rather than looking at this as something that's overextended, that's ready to go down, this is actually a buying opportunity because the technique generated a buy setup, and the stock went up 23 points into this last week. Now, if you missed that, guess what? Another buy setup here and another one right here. TLRY, once again, very limited information given, but that's to the common trader, to people who are students of ours, would have been able to apply the PET D and seen that even though it looks like we're going sideways to higher, what is the color of all these bars? They're all red. So even though we had an up day here, an up day here, and another up day here, they are all up days in a downtrend. So you don't want to look at them as buying opportunities. You want to look at them as selling opportunities. And this last one meets all the qualifications for the technique I'm teaching you today. It's outlined red, and its close is above the previous bar's high. So that's a sell setup. The stock fell 19 points coming into June. All right. The beauty of this technique is if you miss the most advantageous sell signal, well, don't worry. There was another one generated here you could have taken advantage of, and still another one generated here. They meet all the requirements of this technique. All right, so let's look at some other markets and time frames because we know not everyone is a stock trader. So let's look at a weekly time frame of stocks. If you're an investor or a swing trader, someone looking at this would say, well, gosh, we're in another range market, sideways market. I can't trade during this. Why would I want to buy Netflix? It may break down or go sideways for a long time. Well, it may, but why don't we use a little higher probability analysis? And that's by using our translator. And once we apply the PET D, using this exact same process with a weekly chart, we see here that the majority or all the bars are actually green. All right. Now, using the rules to the technique I'm teaching you today, we have 3 buy setups. So in March and the end of March and in April, you had 3 different chances to go long Netflix, and coming into the end of April, beginning of May, the stock was up 35 points. Not a bad little quick swing trade. Or how about a weekly chart of Tiffany? Now, here's the way most students trade. Once again, myself included, I know this because this is the way I used to trade. When I first traded candlesticks going back 4 decades ago, I was trading using them the same way most traders would, as reversal patterns. For example, we have a short-term downtrend. And then what do we have here? Well, we have a morning star. That's a bullish pattern. That's something that is taught that we should be looking at to go long because that's a reversal pattern of the downward trend. So most students would say, Steve, why would you even think of selling? We got to start going long here, okay? But it wasn't until my mentor said, Steve, candlestick patterns work great as long as they are in sync with the trend. Now, what is the trend telling us? Well, let's apply our translator. We click on the PET D, and the translator is saying that the short-term trend is down. So why would we want to base our buying off of a candlestick pattern in a downtrend? We would use that if it were in an uptrend. If all these bars were colored green, then sure, we'd apply that morning star technique. But they're colored red, so we're not going to apply any technique to go long. We're going to apply the technique I taught you today because we have an up day that's outlined red, meaning it's an up day in a downtrend, and its close is higher than the previous bar's high. So that's a sell setup. according to this technique. Remember, you could sell up there. You could wait for it to trade below for confirmation. You could maybe wait for it to go lower and sell halfway lower. Maybe if you wanted to, you could place a limit higher because sometimes they've gone higher for a bar or two. Either way, that would have been a good decision on your part because the stock fell 40 points coming in to the end of the year, okay? So it's really simple to apply to daily and weekly bars. What if we want to look at a different market? Well, let's look at that chart we started off with, the 30-minute chart of the E-mini, okay? Once again, someone looking at this would say, well, sure, we've had a pretty nice run-up, but I think we've got major resistance here, okay? There's a big sell program I heard about at this level. I don't want to go long anymore. We've had a nice run-up. I think I'm going to short it here until I get a valid breakout, and then I'll jump in. Well, once again, this is the way 99.9% of all traders who trade support and resistance trade. If you want to trade that way, that's fine. But wouldn't you have rather listened to the market? Because the market was telling you well in advance that we've been in an uptrend. It doesn't give a darn about any resistance because it's still saying it most likely wants to go higher. And look at all the buy setups you could have taken advantage of using this technique. Even just right below that so-called resistance, you could have gotten long prior to that big rise. And had you taken this first setup, well, you potentially could have captured 44 points in 2 days. That's roughly over $2,200 per unit. That's potential. Remember, some of our students like to take a couple of points and get out. Some like to take 10 or 15. Some like to stay in for as long as possible. Is there one right or wrong way to exit? No. The wrong way to exit is when you listen to someone or something else tell you how to exit. So we never do that at Pro Trader Strategies and Specialist Trading. We give you the information and let you decide. You will only become a consistent trader if you feel comfortable making your own trading decisions, not someone else's. All right, let's look at a 4-hour chart of the Australian dollar. Okay, this was in May, the end of May. As we can see here, we've been coming lower. What do we have there? We have that same old Morningstar pattern, okay? But let's see what the market's telling us rather than a candlestick pattern. The market is telling us that all of the bars are red or have been outlined red. And we have an up day that's outlined red, meaning that we have an up day in the Australian dollar, but it is in a short-term downtrend, okay? So if we're in a short-term downtrend, we do not want to buy, we want to sell. And here's the perfect technique. We have a close higher than the previous day's high. So that's a sell setup according to this technique on the 4-hour Australian dollar. 95 pips or close to $1,000 per unit coming into the end of May, okay? Once again, if you missed that, there was another one along the way. All right, how about commodity traders? All right, a lot of talk lately about crude oil. Crude oil has been falling. Boy, you know, it's hard to follow these fundamental economic reports knowing what crude oil is going to be doing. You know, can't seem to trade commodities. I mean, that's silly. This is the victim attitude that most traders fall into. Markets are just about virtually all the same. Sure, they have different qualifications for how much the worth is of a certain amount for a point or a pip, but the charts look the same, and that's all we're doing. We're just looking at the chart and translating what it wants to do. So once we translate by applying the PET D, we see here that at this point, in the middle of May, we had red bars. So what's the market telling us? It's telling us it wants to go much lower. And once we know how to apply this technique, we have a bar that closes higher than the previous bars, and they're both colored red, so that's a sell setup. So you don't have to wait for some economic report on crude oil. You don't have to see what's going on fundamentally in the world. The market's telling you it wants to go lower, and it fell 9 basis points coming into June. Now, I think right now, as of today, I think actually crude oil is even lower than when I took this snapshot, okay, just last week. Now, finally, let's look at Bitcoin. I just shared with you just about every market imaginable. We forgot about Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin, in this appearance right here in May coming into April, March coming into April, appears to be in a sideways market. Sure looks like it, right? It's just kind of doing nothing. And this is why a lot of people will forget markets or stay out of them, or they get whipsawed because they go, sideways markets are really tough to trade. Well, they are tough to trade if you don't have the proper tools or education. Not to say that this is 100% foolproof, but the PET D can help you in sideways markets. For example, once we applied that to Bitcoin, we didn't change anything. We used the same process on our platform. Click on PET D, and we can see here that even though we're going sideways, the majority of bars are green, telling us that the market, for all intents and purposes, still wants to go higher. All right. We have no idea how high. We never predict how high or how low something will go. We never predict when it'll happen. We're just in the moment trading the market while it's happening. And as you can see, there were a number of setups. We had buy setups, to go long. Well before Bitcoin rose 50% in just the next 2 months, okay, coming into May. And you missed that, guess what? It generated another one right here. So you could have taken advantage of this short. So it makes no difference what time frame, what market, or what direction. This technique can help you in virtually all the markets or directions. Okay, so let's recap before we go to question and answer period. Remember, here is the technique setup. And I say technique, this is not a strategy. Remember, a green bar must close below the previous green bar's low. All right? It can't be below the previous green bar's close, entirely below the previous green bar's low. That's a buy setup. A sell setup is when a red bar closes above the previous red bar's high. Now, how you enter, how you exit, how you place your stop is entirely up to you. Because remember, this is not a complete strategy. A complete strategy comes with all of the pieces of the puzzle. But we didn't talk about where to enter exactly. We didn't talk about where to place your stop. We didn't talk about exit signals. We also didn't talk about money management. These are all things that come with a strategy. All we did today was share with you a technique that spotlights or pinpoints high probability areas. Okay, so as we close here and you ask me questions, I want to ask you a question and answer honestly. We are already 6 months into 2019. Can you believe it? Halfway over. Do you think this technique can help your trading for the remainder of the year? Honestly, ask yourself, whatever market you trade, I've shown you just about examples going over the full spectrum. Do you think it can help you? Well, I think if you answer honestly, I think the answer would be yes. So because of that, we have a great attendee discount for all the people taking time out of their day to watch this educational presentation. We're going to offer you the PET-D. That's the abbreviation for the Primo Early Trend Detector. Okay, this is what we've been using. We made it simple on our platform. We call this our roadmap for any market because you've seen me use it on commodities, stocks, futures, currency pairs, even Bitcoin. Along with this course, you're also going to get 2 more continuation trading techniques and 2 more pullback trading techniques. All right, we're also going to throw in the trailing stop technique. You can apply this to any market, any strategy, and any time frame. And lastly, you're going to get educational correspondence with this. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, gosh, Steve, I've already got this technique down. I don't really need the PET-D. I'll just look for a bar when it closes below the previous bar's low, and I'll just assume if we're in an uptrend, hey, it's going to be easy. Why would I need to buy this? This is easy. I don't need to take this course. For example, you look at the spiders here. This was in April. You say, okay, it's clear to see we're in an uptrend. I don't need that PET-D to tell me that. And here's a bar that closed below the previous bar's low. So yeah, look at, I could have made a nice profit here. Here's another bar that closed below the previous bar's low. I could have taken another profit there. So I'm going to do this one, all right? I'm going to buy right here. This was in May 1st. It closed below the previous bar's low. We're most likely still in an uptrend, so that bar would most likely be colored green, right? Well, once we apply the PET-D, what color is that bar? It's red. So it does not meet the qualifications for this particular technique. And had you bought it based off thinking that you know what the color of the PET-D will be, well, you would have lost 19 points projectively, and that was equal to the Dow Jones dropping 1,800 in just 1 month. Don't you think it would have been a lot better if you simply became a course member of the PET-D and taken advantage of the sell setups that were generated along the way? As you see here, here are just 2 of those techniques that I share with you, 2 setups to go short. Now, I know a lot of students say, okay, Steve, this sounds great, but you know, does this really work, figuratively in the current markets? Because you showed stuff that was happening last month or a couple of months ago, or maybe this last couple of weeks. But how about something that's happening, in the last couple of days? Okay, let's look at this stock here. This is Casey, C-A-S-Y. All right. Once again, someone looking at this would say, well, we're in a sideways market. There's nothing happening here. I can't trade this. And this is why most traders either miss the big ones or they lose money because they're not listening to the market. They're listening to some guy in a chat room telling you you're in a range market. They're listening to a guy on TV saying the institutions are sellers. I mean, this is silly. I listened to this once again 4 decades ago, and it didn't help me. My first year, I almost had to leave the trading floor because I couldn't make any money. But my mentor said, listen, Steve, you will have higher level of consistency if you only listen to one thing, and that's the market in front of you. So how do we listen to the market? Well, we apply the PET D. That's our translator. So all you have to do with our platform is click on the PET D and the bars change colors. So at this point, the market was telling us it wanted to go lower, but on June 4th, it told us with consecutive green bars, it wants to go higher. All right. So now we know that if we're going to be looking at Casey, C-A-S-Y, we're only going to be looking at it with a buyer's point of view. Now, if you learn this technique the way I taught you today, what do we have here? We have a green bar that closes below the previous bar's low. So that meets the requirements of the technique I shared with you today. So you could have bought on the close, you could have placed a limit somewhere. Either way, that was spotlighting that this is a high probability coming from the market, not from me, not from some chat room and not from some institution, but the market telling you it wants to go higher. Now on the 11th, which was yesterday, the stock jumped 15 points in 1 day. Okay, so it doesn't get any more recent than that. This happened just 1-2 days ago. So this shows you the really consistent high probability of validity there is in this technique and with the PET D. So this is our roadmap for any market. This is a great offer. Here's what we're going to do. We're not just going to offer you the PET D. We're also going to offer you our platform. This is the PTS Primo charting platform that really teaches you how to trade, and we feel it's the platform you've been searching for. We're going to throw in all of this on our platform, the PET D, one-click PET D access. We're also going to give you enhanced buy-sell line features. These are 4 different features for determining the overall trend. Another thing we're throwing in is our strength of trend tool. I developed this with ProTrader Strategies. It's a great tool for pinpointing if whatever market you're trading has run out of steam or still has a lot of momentum left to whatever direction it's currently going. You'll also get use of the signal scanner, so you can scan for different techniques and methods. Over 90 of the most prominent technical indicators, so you can tinker under the hood with any technique. Also free Bloomberg TV. Remember, we're not here to tell you how to trade. We're simply here to provide you with information. If you feel you need fundamental news, you're getting free Bloomberg TV. It comes in a little window on your platform. And lastly, personalized tech support. If for any reason there's some issue with your platform or you can't open up a chart, we will be there in a matter of moments to resolve the issue. This is all going to be yours till Friday, only free. We're going to throw in 12 months free, but this is only until Friday. So how do you get this great offer? Well, you're going to get this with the purchase of the Primo Early Trend Detector course, the PET D course. Now, we're going to throw in the PET D course, application, and platform, 1 year for $29.95. Okay? Now, we know that some people can't make that a one-time lump sum, so we're going to provide you with payment plans also. Plus this 12 months of the platform entirely free. The platform itself runs close to $2,000. So if you purchase this with the platform, normally it would cost you close to $5,000. Well, we've almost slashed that by 40%. But this is only good through Friday, only. So you have to take advantage of this quickly, okay? This is a great opportunity. You saw all the examples I shared with you. What about that last example that happened just 2 days ago, okay? You think that could have helped you make up for some of this cost here? We're not guaranteeing anything. We're not saying it's going to pay for itself. All we're saying is that our students around the world in over 115 countries and in virtually every state have given us tremendous testimonials about the PET D and are ways in which to help you trade it. Now, remember, this also comes with educational correspondence. If you're having difficulty or it doesn't make sense to you, most of the time, it's been our experience because you're jumping in too quickly and you're not really following the rules. So that's why we're throwing in educational correspondence. If for any reason you're having difficulty, you can contact me and I'll be there to answer any question you may have or look over your work to see if you're implementing it correctly or if you fully understand the process. This is just like your own personal trading mentor there with you to answer anything you like. So this is a great opportunity to kick your trading into overdrive for a very inexpensive price. And remember, payment plans are available. So for a small discount, you can still be up and running with this great offer we have for you. And remember, this comes with a year of the platform, which makes it simple. You can just simply click it on and you'll see the PET D automatically on your screen. Trust me, 2019 is half over. A year from today, you will have wished you became a member of this course. Don't be here in 6 months later at the end of 2019 attending one of my webinars and say, gosh, why didn't I take advantage of this? Steve is showing examples of the Pet D this last month, and they're just really amazing. Why didn't I take advantage of it 6 months ago at a really discounted price? Okay, so here's how to take advantage. Contact Pro Trader Strategies. I developed the platform, and they are in charge of all my course pricing and discounts, and also the tech support with the platform. They can answer any question you have concerning pricing, concerning payment plans, concerning tech support, and they'll be happy to answer them with no obligation. I would suggest calling them directly at area code 310-598-6677. If you have any questions about pricing or tech support, they would be happy to, with no obligation, to answer. They have technicians, and they have trading consultants manning the phones right now. Now, I'm going to answer any question you have. If you have a question, kindly just go to the question and answer box on your screen there. If that link you see at the very bottom is the link that takes you to the more information in the sign-up page, but there is a live link that's posted on the chat box. It's a lot simpler if you just go to your chat box and click that on, and it will take you to the same page, okay? So like I said, if you have a question right now, just kindly write it in, and I will answer it to the best of my ability. Okay, question here. It says, glad you are recording this. Got to leave early. Okay, I'll watch for the recording in the email. Thank you. You're more than welcome, Mel. And remember, though, feel free to watch this recording. We always record all of our presentations, and we want you to watch it. But remember, this offer of $29.95, which is extremely inexpensive, it's roughly about a 40% discount, is only going to be good till Friday. So you have to take advantage. If you're thinking about it, still watch the presentation, watch the recording, which you'll get later on today, for the next day or two. But remember, don't sit on it. Don't sit on it till next week and say, you know what, I think I'll take advantage of that. Boy, I've had a terrible week, and that Pet D sure sounded good. And then all of a sudden, the price is back up to $6,000. So really, if you're really interested, contact Pro Trader Strategies. No obligation. They would be happy to answer any other question concerning pricing with you, okay? Question, how can the Pet D help to filter out false buy, sell signals in sideways and chopping markets? Well, then your second question, Rakesh, is okay. I think you've answered it. Well, great. Thank you. Remember, there is absolutely no technique or method that is 100% foolproof or guaranteed that can help you in sideways or ranging markets. That's just the way the markets are. That's the price you pay for trading. Everyone has, every method, every system, every technique has difficulty with range markets, because that's where you buy something, then it goes lower. You sell something, then it goes higher. But the beauty of the Pet D is oftentimes it can keep you in an overall uptrend because of the way it translates. A lot of times what looks like a sideways market is really just a market that is, pausing before it wants to go in a certain direction. And the Pet D can help you with that, okay? Let's see here. Is there only one platform the color candles available for? Or is this the only platform this color candles are available for? Well, yes, we only have this platform. In other words, the platform has everything made so simple because everything is one-click access. It's right there. But if you want to use your own platform, yes, we have other tools that you can use. You can use the add-ons for TradeStation, for example, Metastock, MT4, NinjaTrader. But it would probably be best, like I said, contact Pro Trader Strategies if you're interested in using your own platform to get the setups and the signals that way. But remember, it's so easy. We specifically designed the platform to make it easier, because when we originally started applying the Pet D, we had add-ons for all the other platforms, and it really made it very difficult for a lot of traders because of the uploading and because of sometimes the upgrades to the platform. That's why we devised, one of the reasons why we developed the platform, to make it simple, so that you never had to worry about an upgrade or anything like that. So this really takes out of the hard work out of it for you. If you have questions, once again, about tech support, about using a different platform, there's absolutely no obligation. Feel free to contact Pro Trader Strategies. They would be happy to answer your questions in that regard, okay? Yes, it does work on NinjaTrader. DT asks what the difference is. Which Pet D slow would you use? The Pet D comes with two different versions. And once again, we always tell traders it's entirely up to you. Whichever one makes you feel the most comfortable, okay? When trading stocks, is it best to look at the 30-day mark? I'm not sure what you mean by 30-day mark. Joe, if you're talking about a 30-day charts, in other words, I'm not really sure what that means. So I would need a little more clarification on what the 30-day mark is. Okay. Let's see. People are asking about different platforms. Yes, some people say they use MT4. Others say they use Ninja Traders. Yes, we have a way to do that with using those different platforms. Once again, contact Pro Trader Strategies. They would be more than happy to answer your questions on that if you want to use those platforms. But remember, I've used those platforms. It does not get any easier than our own platform. I would say, why not just stick with that? You know, because you can toggle back and forth to the platforms, and you can still use our PTS and then toggle back and forth to your other one. Okay. People are saying, Michael keeps saying GIM. I'm not exactly sure what that means. If that's a stock or a symbol you want me to look up. This is not a live presentation. I don't have access to charts right now. This is a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm not really sure. Sorry for GIM, wrong keyboard. Okay, sure, okay. That's all right, I understand. But once again, this is a great opportunity to kick your trading into overdrive. As you just saw, I mean, I share with you examples in all markets, in all time frames, in all different environments, sideways markets, straight up markets, straight down markets, Bitcoin. We showed you examples in currency pairs. We showed you examples in futures, intraday trading. So it really runs the full gamut. This is something that can really help you, in my opinion. And plus, as I stated earlier, I'll be with you every step of the way. If you're someone who has difficulty, or if you're not really familiar with this type of trading, all you have to do is email me. I was answering emails prior to this presentation this morning. I was answering emails last night. So don't worry, we can help you with anything. As I stated earlier, most of our students have difficulty or lose money right off the bat. Why? Because of the same reason. They jump in way too early. They don't fully understand the rules of the process, and they start to implement it incorrectly. For example, this technique we share with you today, let's say you become a student of mine and become a member of this course tonight, and then you start trading it tomorrow, and you get nothing but losses. And then I say, you would email me, and I say, well, show me your work. Send me some snapshots of the trades you took. I can almost guarantee you that you are implementing the rules incorrectly, that you were buying at the wrong setups and selling at the wrong setups. It's because you don't take the time to practice and to really learn the process. So that's what we require out of all our students, to first paper trade before they use actual funds. That's the only way you can really become a student of mine and a member, and actually to get into that consistent mode. So this is the one requirement we do have. You must paper trade. Trust me, I still paper trade. In fact, I'm paper trading a method right now as we speak. So I want to go see how it's doing before anything changes today. So as we conclude here, I want to say thank you so much for attending. I really look forward to all of you becoming students of mine in the PETD course, along with getting one full free year of our platform. But please remember, this only lasts until Friday, so you have to take advantage of this. We will send you the link to this, but don't sit on the recording. You have to make a decision quickly, because the price will most likely get close to double in the next 3 days or by next week, okay? I want to thank you all so much for attending today. I really wish you the best of luck trading, and I look forward to all of you becoming students of mine in the PETD course. Thank you so much. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.